Kalen Vex adjusted his ceremonial neural crown with the kind of smugness that only comes from 3 centuries of never losing a mental duel. The Nexary's pale, elongated fingers traced the pulsing veins along his temples, a habit developed after his 1000th successful interrogation. Oh, how the galaxy trembled at the mere whisper of his name. Another day, another broken mind. The detention chamber's sterile walls reflected his towering 7-foot frame, all sharp angles and predatory grace. His species had evolved past the need for crude torture devices. Why bother when you could simply reach into someone's consciousness and pluck out whatever secrets you desired? Commander Veeler wants this done quickly, his assistant chirped through the comm. The human vessel's crew is proving stubborn. Kalen's lipless mouth curved into what might generously be called a smile. Humans, the galaxy's newest addition to the conquered species list. These bipedal mammals had managed to spread across several systems before the Nexary noticed them. Now, they were just another footnote. The detention field shimmered as his target was brought in. Jake Morrison, according to the files. Age 32, occupation, maintenance worker. Home world, some backwater planet called Earth. Brown hair, average height, wearing those ridiculous blue coveralls that human laborers seem to favor. He looked about as threatening as a domesticated pet. Seriously? Kalen asked aloud. This is the prisoner who supposedly knows about Earth's defensive capabilities? A janitor. Jake sat down heavily in the interrogation chair, his hands cuffed behind his back. He looked tired, defeated, completely ordinary. Perfect. The broken ones were always easier to read. Well, Mr. Morrison, Kalen said, approaching with theatrical slowness, I hope you're ready to share everything you know about your home world's military secrets. Because ready or not, I'm about to take a very detailed tour of your mind. The human just stared with flat brown eyes. No fear. No defiance. Just emptiness. Kalen circled like a predator sizing up wounded prey. His mental tendrils tingled with anticipation. That delicious thrill before each mind meld never got old. I once broke a Catherian war chief in under 30 seconds, he said conversationally. 8-foot-tall crystalline warriors with minds like fortress walls. I shattered his psyche like cheap glass. The human continued staring at nothing. Behind the observation window, 3 junior Nexary telepaths watched with eager anticipation. Fresh graduates, there to witness a master at work. Well, they were about to witness artistry. Now, humans, Kalen mused, studying Jake's unremarkable features. According to our reports, you're barely above primitive. Single-threaded consciousness, limited cognitive capacity. Your species has been spacefaring for what, a few decades. He placed his pale hands on either side of his head, activating the full power of his telepathic crown. Energy crackled between his fingers. Any last words, Mr. Morrison, before I take everything you know? Jake finally looked up, meeting his gaze directly. Yeah, he said quietly. Good luck with that. Kalen pressed his fingertips against Jake's temples with the confidence of a master craftsman. The initial contact felt normal, that gentle electric tingle as his consciousness reached out to touch another mind. Standard procedure. Then the storm hit. The first sensation was noise. Not sound but pure, overwhelming mental noise that crashed into Kalen's awareness like a tsunami. Where he expected simple linear thought patterns, he encountered something that defied every law of telepathic contact. What the? He gasped. Jake's consciousness wasn't organized like other species. It wasn't organized at all. Thoughts ricocheted through his neural pathways like hyperactive particles in a chaos engine. One moment, Kalen was experiencing Jake's memory of fixing a ventilation system. The next, he was drowning in the human's emotional response to something called pizza, followed immediately by a vivid fantasy about flying through space on the back of a giant turtle. This is impossible. Kalen's hands began trembling against Jake's skull. Focus. Find the pattern. But there was no pattern. Where Catherian minds had been fortress walls, Jake's consciousness was like trying to navigate a hurricane made of pure thought. Random song lyrics mixed with mathematical equations. Childhood memories of Earth's yellow sun blended with technical specifications for spacecraft engines. And underneath it all, a constant stream of what could only be described as commentary. The commentary was the worst part. As Kalen struggled, he realized Jake was mentally narrating his own thoughts, creating a recursive loop of self-awareness that made the telepath's head spin. "Oh, look. I'm thinking about the time I thought about that thing." Followed by, "I wonder if this alien guy realizes how weird his face looks up close." "Stop," Kalen whispered, his voice cracking. "Stop thinking so much." Behind the observation window, the junior telepaths leaned forward with growing concern. The master's bio readings were spiking into dangerous territory. "I can't find the military information," Kalen said through gritted teeth. "There's too much noise. How do you think about 17 different things simultaneously while also composing what appears to be a limerick about my appearance?" Jake's mental voice drifted through the connection with infuriating casualness. "Oh, that's easy. I'm also wondering if you guys have coffee in space. Remembering my first day at work. Planning my escape route. Calculating odds of survival. Missing my cat. And trying to remember if I left the stove on." The telepathic feedback became unbearable. Kalen felt his own thoughts beginning to scatter, infected by the chaotic patterns of human consciousness. His carefully organized mind, trained through decades of discipline, was starting to unravel at the edges. "This isn't possible," he gasped. "Minds don't work this way." Jake finally spoke aloud, his voice perfectly steady. "Yeah, we get that a lot." Kalen made the mistake of trying to go deeper. If the surface was chaotic, the layers beneath were nightmarish. Human minds, he realized with growing horror, didn't just think in multiple tracks. They existed in multiple dimensions of thought simultaneously. While Jake's surface consciousness maintained a perfectly normal conversation, deeper levels were running complex simulations, processing emotional memories, creating hypothetical scenarios, and maintaining several ongoing internal debates. "Dear gods," Kalen whispered. "You're running background processes. Actual background processes. How are you not insane?" One layer of Jake's mind was currently redesigning the interrogation chamber with better lighting. Another was composing an epic poem about a heroic janitor saving the galaxy with a mop. A third was methodically analyzing Kalen's telepathic technique and finding it pretty invasive honestly and kind of rude. But the worst part, the part that made Kalen's trained mind real, was the creativity engine. Jake's consciousness constantly generated new ideas, new possibilities, new connections between unrelated concepts. It was like trying to interrogate a supernova of pure innovation. "Focus on military information," Kalen commanded desperately. "Earth's defenses. Fleet positions." "Oh, that stuff." Jake's mental response came wrapped in layers of amusement. "Sure, let me think about that." What followed was the most frustrating 30 seconds of Kalen's career. Jake began thinking about Earth's military, which led to thoughts about his friend Marcus in the Space Navy, which led to memories of Marcus's terrible cooking, which led to a detailed analysis of food preparation techniques across cultures, which connected to theoretical physics, which branched into speculation about alien biology, which circled back to wondering if Kalen had ever tried chocolate. "This is not how minds work." Kalen screamed, both mentally and physically. "Why not?" Jake's response was genuinely curious. "It's all connected anyway. Military strategy connects to psychology, which connects to sociology, which connects to biology, which connects to physics, which connects to philosophy, which connects to art, which connects to, well, everything." Behind the observation window, the junior telepaths were frantically taking notes. The readings suggested Jake's brain was operating at levels of complexity that shouldn't be possible with organic neural tissue. Kalen tried a different approach, mapping Jake's emotional landscape. Surely emotions would be simpler. He was wrong. Human emotions weren't simple states. They were complex ecosystems. Jake could feel nostalgic, hopeful, anxious, and amused simultaneously, each emotion informing and modifying the others in real time. "How do you make decisions?" Kalen asked desperately. "With all this chaos, how do you choose anything?" Jake's mental laughter was warm and genuine. "Oh, that's the beauty of it. We don't really choose. We just synthesize. All the chaos comes together, and somehow magically we know what feels right. It's not logical. It's not orderly. But it works." Kalen was beginning to understand why humans had spread across multiple star systems despite their apparent primitiveness. This wasn't mental chaos. It was mental warfare. Every thought was a defense. Every connection a misdirection. Every emotion a smokescreen. You're doing this on purpose, Kalen accused, his mental voice weak with exhaustion. Doing what? Jake's innocent response was maddeningly genuine. Thinking. Yeah, I do that pretty much all the time. Can't really turn it off. It's like asking me to stop breathing. The telepath realized with dawning horror that he was trapped. Not physically, mentally. Jake's consciousness was so alien, so fundamentally different from anything in the known galaxy, that Kalen couldn't find his way out of the connection. Every time he tried to withdraw, another layer of human thought grabbed his attention, pulled him deeper into the maze. Help, he whispered. Desperation drove Kalen to abandon all finesse. He began tearing through Jake's mental layers like a wild animal, searching frantically for useful intelligence. Instead, he found jokes. Not just any jokes, an entire arsenal of humor designed to derail serious thought. The moment he focused on anything military, Jake's mind produced a memory of a comedian mocking space combat, or a silly song about alien invasions, or a cartoon where aliens were defeated by a dog wearing a cape. Stop it, Kalen snarled. This is not how interrogation works. Oh, but it is. For the first time, Jake's mental voice carried something sharp beneath the casual tone. You see, Kalen, the thing about humans is we've been dealing with mental intrusion for thousands of years. We call it social interaction. The telepath paused, confused. What? Think about it. Every day, humans interact with dozens of other humans. We read facial expressions, interpret tone of voice, predict behavior, defend against emotional manipulation. We've evolved to be living, breathing, walking counterintelligence operations. Kalen felt a chill run through his consciousness. You're saying? I'm saying that what you call mental chaos is actually our defense system. We compartmentalize because we have to. Multitask because survival depends on it. Create mental noise because sometimes you need to hide your real thoughts. The realization hit Kalen like a physical blow. Human minds weren't primitive. They were fortified. Every seemingly random thought, every emotional tangent, every creative leap was part of an unconscious defense mechanism evolved over millennia of complex social interaction. But you're just a maintenance worker, Kalen protested weakly. Jake's mental laughter was rich with irony. Yeah, about that. Funny story. Maintenance workers on military installations fix things. Air recycling systems, communication arrays, navigation computers, defensive grid power supplies. We go everywhere, see everything, and nobody pays attention because we're just maintenance. The truth dawned with horrible clarity. You're not a random prisoner. Commander Jake Morrison, Earth Defense Engineering Corps, Jake replied cheerfully. Though I really do prefer maintenance worker. Sounds so much more humble, don't you think? Behind the observation window, the junior telepaths were in full panic mode. Master Kalen's neural crown was sparking dangerously, overloaded by feedback from the impossible human mind. You see, Jake continued conversationally, humans have this thing called small talk. We can have entire conversations about absolutely nothing while thinking about completely different things. We've mastered mental misdirection because we practice it every single day. Kalen tried one last desperate assault, pushing his telepathic abilities beyond safe limits. But the harder he pushed, the more Jake's mind seemed to adapt, creating new layers of complexity, new diversions, new mazes of thought. The beautiful thing about human consciousness, Jake said, his mental voice now carrying an undertone of steel, is that we're not just individuals. We're social creatures. Every human mind contains multitudes because we've internalized thousands of other personalities. Our parents, our teachers, our friends, our enemies, characters from books and movies. We're not one person. We're a symphony of human experience. Impossible, Kalen gasped. Oh, it gets better. Jake's relish was obvious. You want to know the really funny part? You've been studying humans for months, preparing for this invasion. You analyzed our technology, mapped our defenses. But you made one crucial mistake. What? Kalen whispered. You assumed that because our technology is simpler, our minds must be simpler too. You never considered that the species that invented psychology, philosophy, and abstract art might have developed some pretty sophisticated mental defenses along the way. Kalen's world began to spin. The Nexari had built their entire empire on telepathic superiority. But what happened when they encountered a species with natural immunity to mental invasion? The neurofeedback reached critical mass. Kalen's telepathic crown erupted in a shower of sparks as his mind finally snapped under the strain. His elegant form crumpled to the floor, convulsing as 3 centuries of mental discipline unraveled in seconds. "Master Kalen!" a voice crackled through the calm. Jake sat calmly in his restraint chair, watching the chaos with mild interest. "Huh. That looked painful. Should probably see a doctor about that." Commander Veeler burst into the chamber, his composed demeanor shattered. The sight of the Empire's greatest telepath twitching on the floor while a human prisoner sat unrestrained was not something his training had prepared him for. "What happened here?" Veeler demanded. "Oh, you know," Jake replied, rubbing his wrists where the restraints had been, "just a little cultural exchange. Your friend there got a crash course in Human Consciousness 101. Looks like he failed the midterm." Medics rushed in with emergency telepathic stabilizers. The master telepath was mumbling incoherently, occasionally muttering fragments about too many thoughts and why so many jokes. "You did this," Veeler accused, weapon trained on Jake. "Me?" Jake looked genuinely surprised. "I just sat here and thought about stuff. Normal human stuff. Work, family, that weird dream about being chased by giant rubber ducks. Standard operating procedure for the human brain." A young researcher entered, her tablet clutched in trembling hands. "Commander, the readings don't make sense. The human brain activity showed patterns we've never encountered. Multidimensional processing, parallel emotional states, recursive self-awareness loops. It's like his mind exists in several dimensions simultaneously." "That's about right," Jake nodded agreeably. "See, here's the thing you missed. Human brains aren't just thinking machines. We're survival machines. For millions of years, we've had to outwit predators, navigate complex social hierarchies, and survive in groups where reading someone's real intentions could mean life or death." He stood up slowly, stretching. The weapons trained on him seemed almost comically inadequate. "Now, every human child learns to lie by age 3, Jake continued, his voice taking on the tone of a patient teacher. "We learn to hide our true thoughts, to misdirect, to create mental smokescreens. We call it tact and diplomacy. But what it really is counterintelligence training that starts in the cradle." Kalen let out a pitiful moan from the floor. The medics were shaking their heads. His neural patterns were completely scrambled. "The beautiful irony," Jake said, looking down at the broken telepath with something like sympathy, "is that you built your entire empire on the idea that minds are orderly, predictable things. But human minds aren't orderly. They're ecosystems. Chaotic, adaptive, resilient ecosystems shaped by millions of years of social evolution." Commander Veeler's weapon hand trembled. "What are you?" Jake smiled, and for the first time, there was nothing friendly about the expression. "I'm a maintenance worker who's really, really good at fixing things that are broken. And right now, Commander, your invasion plan looks pretty broken to me." 3 hours later, Kalen finally regained coherent consciousness. His first words were, "Never again." His second, "How many humans are there?" "About 12 billion last count," Jake replied helpfully from the commander's chair, having somehow convinced the Nexari to bring him coffee and alien pastries. The master telepath's face went even paler. 12 billion minds like that? "Oh no," Jake said cheerfully. "We're all completely different. That's kind of the point. Every human brain is unique. Different experiences, different traumas, different ways of processing reality. What you experienced in my head, that's just one flavor. We've got 12 billion different flavors." Commander Veeler spoke up, his voice hollow. "You're saying every human would be resistant to telepathic interrogation?" "Resistant?" Jake laughed. "Commander, you're thinking about this all wrong. We're not resistant. We're toxic to it. 3 centuries of telepathic mastery, and your best guy got taken down by a maintenance worker having a normal Tuesday." The young researcher, Nexara, looked up from her frantic notes. "But our intelligence reports said you worked in maintenance." "I do work in maintenance," Jake confirmed. I also hold advanced degrees in psychology, xenobiology, and strategic warfare. Funny thing about humans, we tend to be multifaceted. I fix air recyclers during the day and design defensive strategies at night. My colleague Sarah runs the cafeteria and writes theoretical physics papers in her spare time. Our janitor has 3 PhDs and speaks 14 languages. The assembled Nexari exchanged increasingly worried glances. You see, Jake continued, warming to his subject, you made the classic mistake of judging a species by technology level. Sure, our ships are slower than yours. Our weapons less advanced. But while you were perfecting mind control, we were perfecting something far more dangerous. Which is? Wheeler asked reluctantly. Unpredictability. Creativity. The ability to think outside any box you try to put us in. You can't telepathically interrogate someone whose thoughts jump from military strategy to childhood memories to philosophical questions to what they want for lunch, all in the span of 3 seconds. Kalen struggled to sit up, his neural crown now a melted ruin. What do you want from us? Jake's expression grew serious. Well, that's the beautiful thing about this situation. You came here planning to conquer us, but instead you've learned something valuable. The galaxy is full of species you can mentally dominate. But humanity, we're the species that dominates ourselves every single day in our own heads. We've been fighting mental battles since we developed consciousness. He stood up, brushing pastry crumbs from his coveralls. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to take your ships and go home. You're going to tell the Nexari Empire that humans are off limits. Not because we're too strong, because we're too weird. And if we don't... Wheeler's voice was barely a whisper. Jake's smile returned, that dangerous, unsettling expression. Then you're welcome to try your luck with another human. Maybe you'll find one with a more organized mind. Or maybe you'll find one who's having a worse day than I am. Maybe you'll find one who doesn't feel like being gentle. He gestured toward Kalen's twitching form. Your master telepath spent 3 centuries breaking minds. He met one human and lasted 14 minutes. How many of your telepaths do you have? How many are you willing to lose? The chamber fell silent. Outside, alarms continued blaring, but inside, no one moved. You're bluffing, Wheeler said. Am I? Jake raised an eyebrow. Check his neural readings again. See if that looks like a bluff. The medics confirmed, Kalen's neural pathways were completely scrambled. Permanent damage. 3 centuries of telepathic mastery, reduced to incoherent mumbling. We can't fight that, Wheeler admitted quietly. We can't fight an entire species of whatever you are. We're not looking for a fight, Jake said, his voice softening. That's the other thing you misunderstood. We don't want to conquer anyone. We don't want to dominate the galaxy. We just want to be left alone to live our weird, chaotic, beautiful lives. He walked toward the chamber door. No one stopped him. You came here expecting to find primitive minds ready for harvest. Instead, you found minds that harvest telepaths who try to read them. He paused at the doorway. Remember this lesson. And tell your empire, Earth is closed for business. The Nexari fleet withdrew from human space within the week. They never returned. And somewhere in the depths of the Nexari archives, a new entry appeared in their database, marked with the highest priority warning. Species: humans. Threat level: unquantifiable. Notes: do not attempt telepathic contact. Do not attempt mental interrogation. Do not attempt invasion. Final recommendation: leave them alone. They are not worth the headache. Literally. Jake Morrison went back to fixing air recyclers. He never mentioned the incident to anyone. When asked why he seemed so relaxed after single-handedly stopping an alien invasion, he just shrugged. Tuesday, he said. Weirdest Tuesday I've ever had, though. The coffee was terrible. The Nexari fleet withdrew from human space within the week. They never returned. Somewhere in the depths of the Nexari archives, a new entry appeared, marked with the highest priority warning. Species: humans. Threat level: unquantifiable. Notes: do not attempt telepathic contact. Do not attempt mental interrogation. Do not attempt invasion. Final recommendation: leave them alone. They are not worth the headache. Literally. Kalen Vex survived, though survived was a generous description. His neural pathways remained scrambled. He could no longer read minds, any minds. The gift that had defined his 3-century existence was gone. Sometimes he muttered about too many thoughts or the jokes. Mostly, he sat in silence, staring at walls. His former students visited once. They left after 11 minutes, pale and shaken. No one asked what he'd told them. Commander Veeler faced a military tribunal. The Nexari Empire had never lost a conquest before. Someone had to take the blame. Veeler accepted his fate without protest. Before they led him away, he spoke one sentence to the court. The humans aren't weak. They're the most dangerous species we've ever encountered. Not because of what they can do to us. Because of what we become when we try. The Nexari Empire quietly redrew its expansion maps. Human space became a blank zone labeled unexplorable. No ships entered. No scouts approached. No telepaths reached out. The galaxy noticed. Other aggressive species, watching from the shadows, recalculated their own plans. If the Nexari couldn't conquer Earth, what chance did they have? Jake Morrison went back to fixing air recyclers. His shift started at 6 the next morning. He didn't mention the incident to anyone. When a coworker asked why he looked tired, he said, "Rough night. Didn't sleep well. Nightmares." Nah. Jake paused, considering. Just a weird dream about aliens. You ever have those? Sometimes. The coworker shrugged. Probably the vending machine food. Yeah, Jake said. Probably. A week later, a package arrived at his quarters. No return address. Inside, a small crystal, warm to the touch, and a note in careful galactic standard. Thank you for the lesson. Kilovolt. Jake held the crystal for a moment. Then he placed it on his shelf, between a worn paperback and a coffee mug that said, "World's okayest maintenance worker." He never told anyone about that, either. The Nexari Empire didn't fall. It simply stopped. Stopped expanding. Stopped conquering. Stopped believing in its own invincibility. The other species it had conquered began to stir, testing boundaries, asking questions. The Empire had no answers. Because the Empire's greatest weapon, the fear of telepathic violation, had been shattered. If a human maintenance worker could defeat their best telepath just by thinking, what else was possible? The galaxy changed after that day. Not with fanfare or battles. With a quiet realization that rippled outward from a single detention chamber. Some minds cannot be broken. They can only be endured. And humans were very, very good at endurance. Jake Morrison retired 20 years later. He lived a quiet life, grew tomatoes, never left Earth again. When historians finally tracked him down, asking for interviews about the event, he declined. "Wasn't just me," he said. "Any human would have done the same. We're all like that. You just never asked." He died in his sleep at 94. On his shelf, beside the crystal and the paperback and the coffee mug, they found a handwritten note. "To whoever reads this, they asked me once what makes humans different. It's not our strength. It's not our intelligence. It's that we've been fighting our own minds every single day since we became human. Telepaths, please. We've been training for this battle our whole lives." They never stood a chance. The crystal still glowed. No one knew why. Somewhere in the Nexari archives, the warning remains. Updated occasionally. Never removed. Do not touch humans. Do not probe their minds. Do not underestimate their chaos. They are not prey. They are the hunters of thought. And you will never see them coming. 20 years after the incident, a Nexari research vessel accidentally drifted too close to human space. The crew panicked. They powered down all systems, held their breath, waited for the inevitable. Nothing happened. After 4 hours, a human ship appeared. Not a warship. A small science vessel, painted with the words, "Research and Chill." The humans hailed them. "You guys lost," a voice asked cheerfully. The Nexari captain, trembling, explained their navigation malfunction. The humans listened. Then they offered to help. "Follow us. We'll get you sorted." The Nexari followed, waiting for the trap. It never came. The humans repaired their navigation array, shared coffee, terrible, and sent them on their way with a wave. "Try to stay out of restricted zones, okay? Some of our defense systems are automated. Wouldn't want any misunderstandings." The Nexari returned home with a new report. Humans were not monsters. They were not conquerors. They were just people. Strange, chaotic, unpredictable people who would help you fix your ship after you tried to invade them. The galaxy still doesn't understand them. Probably never will. Jake Morrison's cat lived to be 23. He swore it was because she was too stubborn to die. When she finally passed, he buried her under the tomato plants and sat in the garden for a long time. "She was the only one who understood," he told a neighbor. "Never asked questions. Just sat on my lap and purred." What needed understanding? Jake smiled. Nothing. Everything. Doesn't matter now. Kalen Vex never regained his telepathic abilities. He became a gardener, strangely enough. Grew flowers on a quiet world far from Nexari space. Sometimes, in the evening, he would look toward the stars and wonder if Jake's tomatoes had grown well that year. They had. The official Nexari record still contains the warning, updated annually, reviewed by every new telepathic class. Species: humans. Threat level: unquantifiable. Notes: they will defeat you by being more themselves than you can handle. Do not engage. Do not provoke. Do not attempt to understand. Accept their existence and move on. Addendum: their coffee is terrible. Do not accept it. It is not poison. It is simply terrible. Jake Morrison died on a Tuesday. The same day of the week the invasion had come. His last words were, "Weirdest Tuesday I ever had." The crystal from Kalen still glowed on his shelf. After his death, no one could explain why it had never stopped. Some things, the galaxy decided, were better left as mysteries. Especially when they involved humans.